Hi to James Newell and welcome to the brand new business podcast. Thanks for coming in today. Can you tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is James Newell. My company is Clear Sales Message. And principally, I teach people how to sell. And for me, it kind of comes in two parts. So the first part is having what I call a clear sales message. So actually being able, it sounds almost flippant, but actually being able to articulate what you actually offer and how to communicate that effectively. The second part is kind of selling confidence, the behavioral side of things, how to ask for the business, how to actually sell to people. And once you've got clarity of message and the confidence of delivery, that means you're going to convert more. That's it in a nutshell what I do.
Fantastic. And how long has it been since you started your business?
It's been about 4.5 years since I
Woohoo!
started full time. Not bad, not bad. Still going.
Started full time. So were you doing it before you went full time?
I was, yeah. So I was doing it kind of in my spare time, evenings and weekends and days off, etc. When I got it back when I had a real job. When I had a real job, I was kind of doing it on the side to make the impact of me leaving my full-time real job much less treacherous because I had children and a mortgage and I like to eat 3 times a day and live in a house. So, I've got to have money.
Really?
It's a bit Moorish.
Okay, what was your real job when you had a real job? What was that?
My real job was I was a key account manager for Daimler Mercedes-Benz. So basically, I was an extremely high volume car salesman. But I would used to say that I'm not a car salesman. I'm a man who sells cars. So I wasn't sat in a dealership. I was doing high level business to business deals, and I do anything up to sort of 2,000 units a year on average.
That's a lot of cars,
It's a
especially
lot.
at that price of car. I mean, these are not just like your little bangers, are they?
No, the average value was about 20 to 30,000, and there will be. I mean, I'm in and out of London all the time. There will be countless cars in London driving around as we speak that I supplied, thousands of them.
Ooh, that makes you feel so good.
No, it doesn't because I hated my job. So it's a
Oh,
horrible reminder.
oh dear. So why did you leave then? Obviously, you hated it.
Yeah, well, I had this really sad realization that you could be really good at something, but you can absolutely hate it. And what happened was over the 12 years that I was there, I was supposed to be there for 6 months. I joined in 2006, and I was supposed to be there for about 6 months while I worked out what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Hmm.
And 12 years later, I still found myself there, and I fell into that trap, which lots of people do. I really wanted to work for myself, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, etc. And as time went on, it just became more and more kind of pressed in my mind. And my kids turned up, and I was over 30. I was saying, oh my God, I really need to sort this out. And as time went on, I was doing progressively more for the company, but I was just getting paid less and appreciated less. And one of the last straws for me was one of the years where I went £2 million over one of my stretch targets, and I was in discretionary territory for bonus. And that was the day I learned that discretionary means you get nothing. And they told me that even though I'd done all of that, because there was other place in the business that went for me, blah, 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 they couldn't give me anything to recognize that performance. But what they could do was add those additional units onto my next year's target and make next year's target even more difficult to achieve, which I found particularly
Why?
galling.
Why would they do that? I
I
mean,
I don't know. I was in a team where I never missed a single target in the 12 years I was there. I worried about every single month, I can assure you, but I never missed a target. And I had colleagues that couldn't hit their target to save their life. And I guess what they were doing was using my performance and the performance of a couple of other my colleagues who were similar to me to prop up those people. But I can remember saying to my boss at the time, who was a particularly not very nice person, said, "You do realize you're just pushing me away. Like you're essentially telling me to leave, like behaving in this way." And he was like, mm-hmm. He didn't really say anything because he wasn't a very good manager. He didn't really say anything about it. And it was at that point I kind of resolved in my mind that I have to. I mean, not everything's about money, of course, but it's like I have to leave. This is not a good place. It's quite a toxic place to be.
and that's it, isn't it? A lot of people leave bosses. They don't necessarily leave jobs, they leave
Yeah,
managers. And
I've thought about that because the boss in particular, I very much didn't like him, and he was not a very nice person. But I was,
don't hold back, James.
no, that's fine. I won't name check him. He's blocked on LinkedIn anyway. It's fine. But I won't. I wasn't leaving him necessarily. He didn't make it any better, of course. But the job itself wasn't. It sounded great. So on paper, I had the best job in the world. So I had a field-based job, which is code for working at home in your pajamas, a long time before COVID and everything. It's more of a standard feature. So I'd work from home. Every 6 months, I get a new Mercedes, which cost me a negligible amount of money. All my fuel is covered. So I had a new Mercedes very often, a job where I'd never missed my targets. The money was okay, but it just wasn't fulfilling. And it was a
Mm.
really toxic place to be. And there's a lot of presenteeism going on, all that kind of stuff. So I do think people leave bosses, but I think they also leave terrible jobs and situations too.
I guess so. And the very fact that you were in sales, I mean, sales is all about targets, and the kind of people that that
Yeah.
attracts are people who, they're driven, aren't they? You give them a target, and they're gonna beat it, they're gonna smash it, but they want to be remunerated for it.
Yeah.
So for you to smash your target, and for them to say, "Oh well, that was great. So now we're just going to put your target up."
Yeah. And not pay for
That's
it.
crazy. But from your perspective, it's turned out to be the best thing ever because it forced you to
Yeah.
look at what it was that you wanted to do. You said that you didn't know what you wanted to do. So how did you figure it out?
Well, I started asking for help and taking action. So one of the first things I did, because what what I actually thought I wanted to do, and I'll share this with you. Sometimes I'm okay, share. Sometimes I'm embarrassed about it. But I wanted to actually be a motivational speaker. That's actually what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Because I'd had a particularly treacherous life to that point. Some terrible things that happened to me, and I'd use a lot of motivational stuff to get me through. And I thought, you know what, I want to be one of these people. So I reasoned that if I go to speaking clubs and places, I'll meet other people who do what they love, etc., and it will kind of work itself out. And then through that, I met a guy, a life coach, actually, a guy called Tim, and he turned around to me and just flippantly, because I said, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do. I think I want to be a speaker," and blah 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 blah. He just turned around to me and said, "Why don't you just teach people how to sell? Look at how successful you've been. Work out what you've done." And teach people how to do that. And there's something called Solomon's paradox, where it's easier for me to tell you how to solve your problems than it is for me to solve my own problems. And it was
Yeah.
really obvious for him to say that, but I couldn't see it. I was like, oh my God, it's obvious. But then my next thought was, well, how do I don't actually understand what I've been doing. I've just been talking to people like this, being nice, and they bought stuff. There's no strategy here. I've just been nice and done what I felt was right. I'm quite an impulsive person. So he introduced me to BNI, Business Networking International, and I started to go to some of those meetings on days off and when I had some spare time. And I offered to work with some people for free. And I said, look, I can definitely help you sell more stuff. I've got no idea what we're going to do, but you don't have to pay me. I'm going to learn. We're both going to win. So a few people said, okay, yeah, we'll give this a shot. My first questions were, so tell me all about your business. What do you do? And how does it work? And why should I choose you? And why expensive? And blah, blah, blah. Basic buyer questions, as far as I'm concerned. Nobody can answer them.
No.
And that led me to, I mean, for most people, and if you're listening and watching this, if you're in one of those situations where, right, it's the 20-second introduction round, we're going to go around the room and you're going to have a 20 seconds, tell us about your
Yep.
business.
Bit
Most people go,
everyone dread.
oh my God. Yeah. Not for me, thanks. Or I'm waiting. Okay, so Trudy's going to go in this person. Okay, so I've got 5 people. I need to
You
work
get
this out.
sweaty palms.
Nobody's ready for it. Nobody's ready for it, which is, and I understand now, like human nature, why that's the case, etc. But I ended up saying, look, let's start here. This is your value proposition. Let's work out what you're really selling to people. How are we going to communicate that? Blah, 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 blah. And then I was complaining to my brother saying, I'm not teaching people how to sell. I'm getting stuck on this like weird value proposition piece. And he turned around to me and said, well, that's your niche then, isn't it? The market's telling you what it wants. Literally like 6 out of the 6 companies that I worked with needed help with this. So if you extrapolate that out, there's an opportunity here. And it just happened that I've got a flair for doing this kind of stuff, explaining things and simplifying them, etc. That just happens to be in my natural ability. He said, there's your niche. Congratulations, you found it. And that was it. And so from there, I kind of had this intrinsic understanding that it had to have a really good name that was explanatory and really easy to use. So Clear Sales Message was born. So with Clear Sales Message, just those 3 words, if you've never met me, I'm very confident, hopefully without sounding arrogant, that you can guess what you think I do. And you should be right, or at least in the ballpark. Certainly, if I was called James Newell Consulting or something a bit more abstract, you'd have no idea.
Yeah.
So it had to have a really good name, fixed price offering, fixed deliverable. I created kind of a methodology, and that was it. I found my what I wanted to do actually was I called find my place in the world, and that's what I found. I found my place in the world where I found something I'm really good at. I'm recognized for being good at it, and I really love to do it. And that's, for me, that's success. That's what I wanted.
Absolutely. And the very fact that you're here now on this podcast, which is about inspiring people to take that leap to run their own businesses, then you've also achieved your
I'm a
other.
motivational speaker. Yay. I do often
Hi.
get I do often get really lovely feedback from people that say they do feel inspired when they hear me speak. 'Cause I do lots of lectures and talks and other bits and bobs. And it's always a really, really nice thing to hear. And I don't know what it is about what I'm saying or what I'm doing, but it's really nice feedback to get that, because I want people to take action and to change things, because life's difficult and finding your place in the world is difficult, but it's also quite straightforward, but you just need the help of others. So I needed Tim to tell me it's teaching people how to sell. I need my brother to say, duh, it's the message thing. And with those two things, without those two things, I'd still be trapped. I have no idea what I'm doing. But with those things, it was fairly straightforward to get to where I am now. I
Yeah,
make it sound really easy, don't I? It's
yeah,
harder than
but
that, but
people overcomplicate it all the time
yeah, it
because,
wasn't complicated.
so
Yeah.
many people come to me and say, I'm starting up a new business. I need a logo. This is my business name. And I say, okay, so what do you do? So I'll pretty much ask those questions that you said. What do you do? Who do you do it for? How do you serve them? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's a struggle. Sometimes it's a big struggle to get people down from, I can do everything for everyone,
Yeah.
down to the fact that this is what they do and this is who they do it for. And yeah, sounds very straightforward. It's not. People are terrified
Yeah.
of niching down. People are scared stiff of alienating anyone, because they could help anyone, and they want to get money. They need to earn. They need to pay their mortgage. But to try and explain that, actually, by being really clear about who you serve and how you serve them, it's so much more likely to get traction and to
Mm.
get business.
There's this misconception that to niche down is to kind of walk away from opportunity, but actually, as far as I'm concerned, you're walking towards opportunity, because if you're known for what you do and you're credible and you have proof and everything else, there's all sorts of different things I do, but principally it's the messaging thing I'm known for, helping people, particularly technical, sophisticated offerings, simplifying those. That's pretty much what I'm known for in the sphere I'm in. So anybody that has that problem and anybody knows me, I'm the first and only person that comes to mind. If I was a much more generalized sales coach or consultant, whatever you want to call me, it wouldn't be half as compelling, because you wouldn't actually understand what I could do.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's really important for anybody who's starting a business to, and I think it's probably hardest at the start with that
Yeah, because
fear
you don't
factor.
know. You don't
A
know at
lot,
the start, do
sometimes
you?
you don't. Sometimes
I
you
didn't
have
know.
no clue.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to kind of cast your net out there to see what you catch.
Yeah.
And then you can start thinking, do I like it? Do I enjoy this? Is it earning me money? Are these the kind of people I want to work with? So yeah, sometimes it does take a bit of time
Mm.
to get to that point where you know intrinsically this is what my business is about.
But like you say, it only comes from actually speaking to people and getting out there. I couldn't have sat at home and Googled this and come up with this independently. I went to them. I understand now it's called product market fit, right? What does the market want? Okay, you provide it. There we go. And that's it. You're thirsty. Oh, I sell beer. Great. We've got a deal here. I was responding to a market need, quite a considerable one. And what I've got here is a niche that's very, very, so it's an inch wide, but mile deep, like nearly every person that you come across in business at some level needs help. In the same way they need help with branding, logo, visual stuff, they need help with the communication piece, because there's almost certainly something that they're not sure about, they don't know, they're nervous, blah blah, whatever. And so, but I could only have found that by asking how I could help people and kind of testing and experimenting with that. And then it showed, and then I didn't even bloody see it myself, did I? Somebody else had to point it out to me, and I'm supposed to be clever, right? So there is this thing where you need the help of other people and you need the perspective of other people to help you to realize the real situation you're in and what to do for the best. You can't necessarily do it all by yourself.
Yeah, and that's not the first time I've heard this in one of my interviews. Lucienne Shakir said exactly the same
Yeah,
thing in terms of her niche. Somebody else pointed it out to her, and she
yeah.
was, "Oh yeah, that's so true."
But the amount of speed you get once you start talking to people and actually paying attention to what works and what doesn't and adjusting, the speed is so much faster if you spend that same amount of time just Googling things and theoretically, well, there's this many businesses and this opportunity and blah, blah, blah. And you're not really connected to the people in the marketplace. It's
Mm.
the speed that makes a difference.
Logo lady was somebody else's idea.
Yeah, well, I'll share something with you because sometimes I share it and other times I just brush past it. But clear sales message, my wife chose that, so I came up with it. But I had a couple of options. One was, I think it was sales message clarity or something like that, and the other one was clear sales message. I didn't even like clear sales message. I just included it in there as an option, you know, like as you do. So give somebody a choice. Which one do you like? She's like, oh my god, clear sales message. That's it. I love it. It's brilliant. It's, okay, you're right about most things, so I'm just going to go with you on this one blindly. So yeah, she essentially sort of pioneered clear sales message, but she's never on these podcasts. So I created and pioneered clear sales message. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's all my idea.
absolutely.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old son is always spot on with my logos. I always show him like, oh Archie, come and have a look at my logos. Which one do you like? And pretty much 100% of the time, whichever one he likes is the one the client likes.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? What is that? What is
I
that? It's
have
so
no idea. It's
who cares? Keep it
I
coming.
know, as long as they
All
like
good.
it. I love your branding. So
Oh, thank you.
I've been on your website. I love
Thank you.
it's black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, the clarity of it is so black and white. How did you go about that side of things?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to somebody in a call earlier on about this, and you're gonna hate me because you're into logos and branding and stuff. But I basically, in PowerPoint, I just knew I wanted a square black and white logo.
Stop.
So I literally found a font that I liked, which I think is called League Gothic. I wrote out the words clear sales message, bunched them up together a little bit, took a screenshot. So in the early iterations of my website, if you'd have downloaded the file, it would have been screenshot, date and time kind of thing. Since then, I've had it made properly as a vector and as a GIF and everything else. But that's how it started. I actually made it myself. And I wanted it to be something that was really simple so you could recognize it, particularly on a small screen and in a square space and blah, blah, blah. But also something I could do myself. Because as much as I'm talking about getting help from other people, working with other people, I actually am a bit of a control thing. I like to do it all myself. So I wanted to do it myself. And I know it's one of those things where I just kind of made it. And it was pretty much the first try I had. I was like, yeah, I like that. That'll do. And it's stayed ever since. And it just works.
Okay, well, here's the facts. I like it too.
But it has been made into a vector now.
Thank God. Vectors, I mean, but that's the thing, isn't it, with branding? You can sometimes you can't pay somebody shed loads of money. Sometimes you don't even need to. Sometimes you can just do it yourself, especially if you have some like a clear idea or
I had a very, very clear idea. Yeah. So it wasn't me kind of it's like for some reason I had a very clear idea of this what I wanted to look like, and I just had to then create it. That was it. Versus if I didn't have a clue, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. You need professional help. You need somebody to give you direction because they can't. In the same way, I'm working with a client at the moment, and I, as an external person that's helping them with their messaging, I've helped them to realize something about their offering and their business that they couldn't see themselves. It's actually gonna. It's like a two-word phrase. It's gonna change a significant amount of what they're doing. It's obvious to me because obviously it's the nature of my work and I do this kind of stuff, but they would never have seen it. So the fact they've got me in, there's huge value in them doing that because they couldn't see it. But for whatever reason, I just, in my head, I just said, yep, black and white, square, nice and simple. I think I'd not long seen something about, do you remember John Paul Mitchell, the hair care people?
oh gosh, yeah.
John Paul DeJoy, the billionaire guy, he was talking about the fact they had black and white branding just because it was cheap and easy to print and blah blah blah. And I was like, I kind of like that. It's just, but it's still elegant. So there's an elegance to black and white, but it's also very simple to make. But the simpleness kind of drifts away, and you're just left with the elegance, which I like.
Yeah, sometimes people come to me with various stages of knowing what they want. My ideal client is somebody who has no idea, not a
Yeah.
clue. They come with a blank piece of paper and they're almost apologizing to me as they step through the door, the
Yeah.
metaphorical door, and say, oh, I'm really sorry, I have no idea what I want. And I'm like, that's why I rub my hands together and go,
That's the
yes,
best bit. Yeah.
come on, then I can do this bit. And then other people come back to me and they will send me a drawing of something that they want, at which point I just think, oh,
Yeah, can you just, so I'd have been the worst client ever, like, can you just make this but real?
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have done it. Generally, I
Yeah.
don't do it. I send you off to Fiverr and
Yeah.
say, you don't need me. If you know exactly what you want, you just want
Yeah.
somebody to do it, then you don't need to pay me because I'm a bit
Yeah.
more expensive than Fiverr. Just go there.
Yeah.
And that's fine, that's absolutely fine. Who wants a client who doesn't want you? No one.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about niching, etc. One thing as I talk about with my clients and students is we need to polarize people as quickly as possible. We need to be polite about it, don't be rude. But if I sense that you're not right for me, you can't afford me, you're not sure, blah blah blah, whatever,
Mm,
I need to polarize you and say, truly, I don't think, maybe this isn't right for you right now or whatever. I haven't got the budget, whatever. But there's no
mm.
point me wasting my time talking to you if there's no real chance of it happening. And that's not for me to send you off in a rude way or be rude or arrogant about it. But I've got to protect my time and what I'm doing. And we dance around our handbags too much, particularly here in the UK, because we're too polite. And the amount of kind of just checking in, have you had any chance to look at this email chains that we see where if you're being really honest with yourself, none of these people are ever going to buy from you, but you're kind of kidding yourself by chasing them, as it were. And so the black and white logo then kind of naturally went into other things. And a couple of years ago, and I really got into video, I realized that black and white video is interesting because one, it's really forgiving, which is awesome. Makes me look awesome. The second, so my mum says, the second one is nobody really uses black and white video per se. The third one is completely on brand for what I'm doing, and it's got this kind of elegance and timelessness to it. So I film everything in black and white. The only time you see me in color is something like this, because if I went black and white now, it looks like I've died because you're in color and I'm black. It's weird. It doesn't work. But on a singular video or a photograph of me or anything like that, they're always in black and white because it's on brand. But it also has that strange simplistic elegance that the black and white logo has, and it just I'm just really happy with it. I've just found it's a great color scheme to use for me, and of course the inference of black and white is it's obvious. Like you can't read anything into it. It's either that or it's that, and that's it. Which, if you think about the nature of my work, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get people to understand things as quickly as possible.
I got that
It all just
straight away
works. Yeah.
looking at your website, and I love the bold type as well. It's
Oh, thank you.
authoritative, it's knowledgeable, it's confident, it's everything I would want it to be for for you and your services. So yeah,
Thanks.
no, well done, love it, love that.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so in terms of your business then
Mhm.
and your journey so far, do you have a big plan for the future? How far in advance are you planning ahead?
Ooh. Well, at the moment, I'm planning about a year or so in advance because I've got a landmark birthday coming up next year. I'm going to turn 40. So there's certain things I want to achieve. I know I look a lot older. It's fine. I want to achieve certain things by the time I'm
For
40.
30, what?
No. I'm wearing like a tie, Trudy. It's fine. It's the baldness. It's what it does to you. So I'm focusing on 40 in particular, things I want to do. But really, my ultimate game plan from even before when I left Mercedes, working at what I want to do, I decided, I don't know if you're familiar with 50 Cent, the album, but it was get happy or die trying. That was kind of my motto. So the first stage was find the thing I wanted to do, that I was happy to do, I enjoyed, I would do it for free, as long as my clients are listening to this, of course. That thing, I call it my place in the world. So that was step one, find that, which I'm really happy to report I have done. And it was
Yay.
actually a lot quicker and more straightforward than I thought it was. I didn't think I'd ever achieve it, to be perfectly frank with you, but I have, and it's awesome. Step two is then to monetize that. So now I'm focusing, now I found what I love. Now it's about, okay, how do I reach more people? How do I scale up? And the ultimate kind of end goal for me, really, so there's a couple of things I want to do by the time I'm 40, but the end goal is that digital scale. So I've basically turned sales and selling and messaging into a paint by number system. I've got a series of digital products online that I can sell kind of on auto passive income, on autopilot, etc. So my goal now is to just reach as many people as possible, increase kind of my social media followers and the community, all that kind of stuff, and then sell those products so I can reach more people and have a greater impact, not just in the UK and in Europe and America, but all across the world. That's my goal.
Yeah, and that's the holy grail, isn't it? That's what
Yeah.
that's what I want to do too, basically, to reach more people. So you've come on my podcast, I made my own.
Yeah, that's it, right? But there's one thing that I've learned very interestingly about social media in particular. If you actually pay attention to the term social media, I was too much media and not enough social.
Yeah.
So I would post things and not really engage or comment, and then wonder why nobody commented or engaged with me. And I realize now that, it's a conversation. It's like networking. You have to kind of put yourself out there to get it back and blah, blah, blah. And now I've understood that and taken that on board. Yeah, things are changing dramatically. And
And
I'm
it's so
just meeting
nice.
lovely people. Yeah, you meet lovely people, right? It's amazing.
Totally. Absolutely. I've got some nice friends on LinkedIn. I don't know them. Like, I never met them, never really
Mm.
spoken to them, but I like them. I like
Yeah.
commenting on their stuff. And
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's a community, which is what we want. We want to find like-minded people. And I think that's the other thing about the workplace that I didn't like was, with all due respect to anybody that would work, if they ever see this, I don't want to be rude about any of those people, but they just weren't my kind of people. I didn't really gel with them. They had different lives to what I wanted to be like. So now I'm in a place where I'm dealing with people who are exactly my wavelength, doing things that I want to do and love, etc. And I feel much more at home, which again comes out of finding my place in the world thing. That's really what I was looking for, where I feel comfortable.
that is the thing, isn't it? You attract like people
Yeah,
like you, and
totally.
that is the sign of a successful brand, basically, like, because that's all about magnetizing rather than,
Mm.
so sales is about going out and telling people your message, and branding is about inviting people just to you, really,
Well, the
to like
branding's
you, to form a relationship with you.
for me, the branding is like that's your reputation, isn't it? That's so there's a really fancy term for this, but it's something really simple. It's called propinquity. So propinquity is exposure. So the more you see something, the more you're going to have feelings about it, good or bad, mostly good, really. But I'll have opinions that says propinquity, propinquity. Fancy word, simple concept. So I'll have opinions about things I'll never buy, like makeup and whatever other kind of kiddies toys, or blah blah blah. But I'll know, I'll have an opinion on Revlon or L'Oreal or whatever hair care. I'm never buying that, right? But I've got opinions on those kind of things, and I understand them, and that's from their visual branding.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what it is. So the exposure to those brands, which is propinquity, this kind of repeated exposure, that's created that. Obviously, the visuals and etc. help with that, but it's just that repeated exposure, those impressions as well. That's what causes that familiarity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we love. We love to feel like we know people. And once we know them, we feel like we can
Mm,
trust them.
yep.
And hopefully we like them. And that's what then helps to ease that sales pipeline of like, okay, well, if you like me and you trust me, then you will want to buy from me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's aligning those things together. And that's where video in particular, so podcasts like this or videos on social media, etc. And I know some people are still really nervous about doing that kind of stuff. And I really was at the start. So I'd happily talk to 200 or 300 people in real life, but sitting in my office and staring at the lens terrified me, and I couldn't work out why. So I just kind of one day said, right, that's it. I'm just going to keep filming until it feels comfortable. And then I'm going to post something. And I just got over myself and did it. And I've done about 1,000 videos since then. So I think
Oh,
I'm
wow.
okay. But with a video in particular, you can get a sense of my energy first of all. And it's funny because I talk about a lot of kind of very hippie kind of energy things, but there's so much going on that we don't could never comprehend, understand. But there's a certain energy you can feel if I'm talking off topic, if I'm going to lie to you, if I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm trying to convince you, if I'm losing my thread, you'll kind of sense it as the conversation goes. So with video, you can size me up and you can get an understanding of who I am, which
Mm,
you'll never get from a static photo or from text or anything else. And from that, either you'll decide that you do think I know what I'm talking about, or I don't, or whatever, and make those conclusions. And then that makes it more conducive if you do want to buy or not, etc. But
yeah.
very, very important.
There is that whole thing, isn't there, about videos, and a lot of people are very shy on the
Yeah,
subject,
I was
very
terrified.
shy, and don't want to put themselves out there.
Mm.
But there are things you can do to help with that, and it's so engaging. It's like even a selfie. Let's talk about the whole selfie
Oh, I'm
thing.
still uncomfortable with selfies. I still can't do those.
You can make 1,000 videos, you can't do a
I know,
selfie.
it's funny. Go figure.
But it's just that connection, isn't it? So I see your face, and I can then connect with you as a person. And for a lot of small businesses and people who start their own businesses, they are their business, they
Yeah.
are their brand, and it is really important to accept that, to embrace that, and to put yourself out there.
When I first started doing videos, it's funny because you don't think you look how you look or sound how you sound. You have this real hang up about it. It's weird, but this is what you look like and what you sound like. It's just, it's news to you, but we already knew this kind of thing. But the amount of great feedback you get when you start doing it, people are really encouraging. It's a bit like if you go to a wedding and somebody's nervous to give a speech or something, and it's obvious they're nervous, and everybody kind of cheers and says, "Oh, come on," and everybody supports them. People want you to do well. I haven't transposed that into selfies just yet. I don't know why, but people generally want you to do well.
Mm.
You're very unlikely to get something, put a nasty comment on a video or whatever.
Especially when you're trying to help people,
Oh
like
yeah,
hints
exactly.
and
Yeah.
tips, I'm doing this to help
Mm,
you. I'm not doing this to help me. I'm
yeah.
not doing this to line my own pocket. This is for you. This is
Mm,
information. This is stuff you can give. And
mm,
that is the other thing, isn't it, about marketing yourself as a small business. The more you can give,
yeah.
the more you will receive. Like, you don't have to give to receive, but the more you can give and give and give, the more people will, what do they call it? It's like a reciprocal.
It's reciprocity. So if
That's
I
it.
help you, you're more likely to want to help me. But it's not necessarily that transactional. So I might help you, but then somebody else will help me. It's like putting it out there. So I'm always very willing to kind of, I'll share my time and expertise as much as possible, to a point. Of course, you don't do everything for free. Like I said, I have to eat 3 times a day, but I like to help people as much as possible, not least because I was helped at the start. So that guy Tim, for example, he was a life coach, and he actually worked with me for free at the start, to help me out. And he said, like, I work with you for free, but just pay it forward. And
Yeah.
so I mentor people and do talks with universities and other stuff, do lots of free unpaid stuff, all sorts of different places, paying that forward. And not only is it just a lovely, lovely thing to do, but it does also lead to stuff. But even if it didn't, it's just the right thing to do. And some of the stuff that I've got, I'm the first to recognize it's not rocket science. A lot of stuff I talk about, you're just probably not doing it, or you're not aware of it, or maybe you didn't understand it. So most of the stuff I talk about is pretty much instantly actionable, will cost you literally zero to implement, and we could change things today. So why would I not share that with you, so you can have a really big impact, and I can help you?
Yeah, no, 100% with you there. I mean, I'm the same. So I volunteer my services at the local library as a
Nice.
branding consultant kind of person. And I just help people who ask me for help. And
Mm,
I've done the odd free logo, I've done the odd charity logo, I've done just do stuff for people because people
mm.
are great generally, in my experience. I've been so lucky, same as you really, that people come into my life when I need them. They seem to appear
Yeah.
with some kind of answer. And I'm sure it's all like everything goes around and comes around. So yeah,
Well,
do everything with a good heart and a bit of kindness.
well, it's that weird energy thing again. I don't want to turn this into like some kind of, what's
Woo!
it called, quantum physics, like meta conversation. But I had a chat with an older guy from BNI before I left Mercedes, and I said, I'm really nervous about leaving. I've set the date, but I'm nervous, blah blah blah, kids, etc. He said, look, when you leave, you think you're about to jump off like 100-foot cliff, but actually, when you leave, you look back and realize it was like 6 inches off the ground,
Oh,
because the whole kind of like jump and the net will catch you, but all that kind of stuff. It's absolutely true. So you just have to have faith and follow it and just go for it. And I was at that point, I used the term desperate. I wasn't really desperate per se, but I was desperate to do something, whatever. So I was like, okay, I need to jump. I'm going to do it. I set the date and that was it. And he was absolutely right. First month of business, I made more money than I thought I was going to make, and certainly more than I even got paid at Mercedes, which was hilarious, doing something I actually enjoyed for a change. And I was like, oh my God,
wow.
this is true. This whole kind of what is it? It's the what's the word I'm looking for? Manifesting, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
That's not as wishy-washy and woo-woo as you might think. There's so much to that. If you really focus on things and move towards them.
I put up a post, was it last week? Oh yeah. Did you see that post I put up on LinkedIn about manifesting last week? It was I
I
got
didn't
an
put it.
email through from Buzzsprout saying, "You have had 100 downloads of your podcast." And I was
Hey.
like, 100 downloads. And then I thought, oh my God, I've got 5 episodes. That's really rubbish. And then I thought, oh, it's good. It's good. We're
It is good.
starting out, we're
Mm.
going to grow. And one day it's going to be 1 million. And because I'm a graphic designer and because I can, I changed it. I did, I did a screen grab, put it into
Oh, perfect.
Photoshop. And I
Yeah.
made it 1 million. Congratulations on 1 million downloads. And I was like, yeah, just manifest, manifest, manifest.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But yeah, mood
Work.
boards
It
and
works. Yeah. I mean, in my office right now, I'm not just in my recording studio from where I did my first album. So in my office here, I've got things on the walls, particularly like on the window I'm looking at here for next year when I turn 40. The things I want, there's visual representations of it and like things to do. And there's a particular mantra that I use to remind myself what I'm up to. And yeah, it just keeps me focused on what matters. And I think
My
that's actually what it is. It's just focus, isn't it?
yeah,
If you just focus on what you want and
where
do it, you'll probably get it. Ta-da!
your concentration where your energy flows,
Where
your
focus goes, energy flows. Tony
that's it.
Robbins. Yeah. I've
I
seen a
wish
lot
I
of that
could
stuff.
see.
That's all right. I'll take over from here. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I'm like, oh, I'm sure there's I could
If
never come up with a word like propinquity.
oh, well, the first time I heard it, I had to Google it. Don't worry, it's fine. But I've also got to be aware of these things and know them, because imagine if I didn't know that and you told me, and I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. I'm supposed to be the expert here. So I've spent a long time. So a lot of what I do comes naturally to me. It's kind of just a weird natural gift. I can just explain things. I can understand things very quickly and I can explain them very simply. It's just that and wearing off the peg suits is like my two gifts in life. That was it. I didn't get hair, but you can't have it all. But then from there, I've done a lot of research and understanding in terms of all the other things, because I've got to know what I'm talking about. And I can't be in a situation where you know something I don't, particularly about this subject matter, because what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be the expert here, right? So I've spent a great deal of time learning about this stuff so I can teach it to other people, but so I can be ready for it. But yeah, propinquities are I do like these kind of overly complex words for really simple things. It's just such a waste of time. What's the point? Propinquity. Like, you'd flinch
Or
before spelling that, wouldn't you?
you can even make up your own words. I had a guest
Yeah, I
a
have.
few weeks ago. Prosecco Festo was her manifesto for when she was drinking Prosecco. Prosecco Festo.
Prosecco Festo. Wow. Try spelling that when you're drunk.
And confidence was another one of her words. I'm like, oh, you got all the words. They're brilliant. How do you make yourself up? But okay, so when you went into business, you had 2 children, did you, at the
Yeah, I've
time?
got 3 now.
Woo!
And
How
no more.
stop, stop. How old were your children when you went into business?
Oh God, I can't remember now. Not very old. So George would have been. This is 5 years ago. He would have been, yeah, about 18 months or so, and Ralph would have been about 3 or 4. So quite young.
Yeah.
Which made a few of my friends laugh at the time, because one of the reasons why I do what I do is I want to set a good example for my kids. And but your kids don't know they can't even like use a toilet yet. They're not sure what's going on. So yeah, but it's just the principle. If I want to set a good example for my kids, so I have to do it. So now they're 9, 7, and nearly 3.
Oh, so that's interesting. And for you, what do you mean by a good example?
Good example is in following, so doing what you love for a living, not just having an arbitrary job. There's nothing wrong with, working in a shop or working at office or whatever. If you're happy to do that, that's absolutely fine. I was not happy to do that, but I didn't realize there was any other options, because the world of self-employment is such a scary unknown. I couldn't even fathom how I pay myself a 1 month, let alone pay myself continually for the rest of time running my own business. I couldn't fathom how it possibly work. And now I understand how it works. And it's not easy or simple, but it's quite straightforward when you know what you're doing. So I want to set the example to them that I love what I do. And outside of a few people like yourself on LinkedIn, I don't know anybody else who loves what they do for a living and really kind of enjoys it. I really love what I do for a living, which I think that's my definition of success. Every day I get up and do stuff I want to do. That's my definition of success. And I want that for them, because I was never given that kind of that role model. And I had a pretty terrible childhood. So I want to set a good example for them, be a good parent for them, which for me starts with kind of leading the way in terms of how they show up professionally in kind of the work that they do or business they do.
I'm a big advocate of follow your heart, and everything else will fit into place. So my children are significantly older. So my eldest is just coming up for 16, and so he did his options. What is he going to follow? What path is he going to follow? What subjects will he take? And he's very academic, but he really loved PE.
Cool.
And I said, well, do PE then. And he's doing it, and he wants to do it at A level. And when I say he's very academic, he's extremely clever, like really clever. And his PE teacher enraptures about Luke, because he feels like not many people in his class are as intelligent as him, and also sportingly gifted as well. So he's he
it's
just
unusual, isn't it? That is unusual. For me, it's mutually exclusive. So I'm quite intelligent, but the only sport I play is chess, right? I can't. I can't. You either have one or the other. So if he's got both, he's doing well. But you're right.
But
He's got to follow his heart. He's got to do what he loves.
absolutely. And I did. I always think that when I was at school, I was going to be an accountant because I really loved maths, but I
Mm,
also felt like I really loved this subject that was design and communication as well, but I had no idea where that was going to lead.
mm.
And I was going to drop it when I did my A levels, but it was like the day before we were starting back at school. I went in and I said, can I change economics for this design A level? And he
Mm.
looked, my head of year looked at the timetable, says, yeah, we can make that work for you. And I was like, yeah, I need
The
to, I
rest is
need to.
history.
I know, I know. What if I'd have dropped it? Where would I be now? I would be
Yeah.
in with an abacus, and I'm sure I would
Welcome
have.
back to the accountancy podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But no, graphic design is always in me, and it was never where I thought I would be, but it was what I loved and what I was really
Mm.
passionate about, and what I've stayed passionate about for 25 years.
Amazing.
Mm.
Amazing. And that for me is success. You know, everybody talks about, what's success, and they think it's money and blah, blah, blah. But that's success. If you do something you love and you enjoy and you're celebrated and recognized for it, for me, that's my definition of success.
What's been the best thing you've done in your business?
Ooh,
Ooh.
best thing. Best thing. How do you mean best thing?
What was the best decision you made for your business, apart from starting it up in the first place? Like,
Well, there's a few, but the main one was to have a fixed price, fixed deliverable offering, and to charge clients when I start working with them. So I don't charge an hourly rate. I don't charge for my time. I charge a fixed cost for the result that they get, and I'm payment in full upon commencement. So I never have to chase invoices or chase payment. If somebody works for me, they pay me in full on day one. There's something in my terms and conditions that says I'm fully refundable if they don't like what I do. Nobody's ever taken me up on that. Hopefully they won't. But that's been one of the best decisions because I don't have that stress of chasing for money and the cash flow issue, etc. And it means I'm always cash flow positive in the business. And then you can't commoditize me. So if I said I was 50 or 100 or 5,000 pounds an hour or whatever, you could then maybe barter with you or compare it to something, whatever. But if I tell you I charge this fixed cost for this fixed deliverable, people don't negotiate with me or ask for discounts. Just say, okay, we'll pay that, and that's it.
and that's interesting. That was the other thing I was going to ask you about, actually. In terms of pricing, that's not always easy for
No,
people.
not at all. Not at all.
And how do you put a value on yourself, and what do you charge hourly, or how did you go about it?
Well, I started by drastically undercharging,
Of course.
which is what most people, and still even feeling ashamed of charging that much was just ridiculous. And then I had help actually with charging more. I went through like a coaching thing where they taught you, had to see the value and charge the value, etc. Because although I might be gifted at understanding, communicating things, I've still had to learn an awful lot about sales and selling as time's gone on. Because selling in a business for somebody else very different from selling for yourself. And I've got to the stage where if I know roughly my pricing doesn't change from client to client dramatically necessarily, but if I understand, what your average transaction size is or what your turnover is versus what I'm charging, I know the value and the impact of what I do. I mean, I've got a client where they've gone from they've launched a new service, which went from essentially zero in revenue, pretty much nothing, to best part of 1.2 million pounds a month in turnover as it goes each month. Now, that is not 100% all because of me. I can't take all the credit for that. Of course I can't. But 99, no, but a considerable part of that is down to the work that I've done, because I was able to help name the offering and sell it and communicate it. So that has a massive value for them. And that's the difference. And the word value is really difficult because it's overused and it's completely meaningless now for most people. But you have to understand that I'm not just buying a logo from you, I'm buying something else. You're not buying a messaging from me, you're buying something else. And what's that really worth? And
Mm.
what's that worth over the longer term? I'm not just going to have your logo for 6 months, am I? I'm going to have it for 1, 3, 5, 10 years, who knows? Same for sales messaging. So when I looked at the longer term and the real value of what I was selling, I was able to believe more in what I was charging, and that made the difference for me. But at the start, just dramatically undercharged. And even at that point, somebody said I was expensive, and I was is conundrum. Oh my god, I can't go any lower. Blah blah blah. And it was a nightmare.
You always get both sides. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that too, in terms of, I think my baseline package for a logo is £500,
Mm.
and if you go on Facebook and you say you charge £500 for a logo, you get people coming on saying, "What? That's extortionate. That's crazy. I charge £1."
Yeah, I liken that. So when I teach people how to sell, I don't specialize in pricing necessarily, but obviously I've got thoughts about it and methodologies around it. But I liken that to trying to sell a Rolls Royce in a Tesco's car park. So sometimes you go to Tesco's and they'll have the local Volkswagen or Peugeot dealer's got some cars there with some balloons. Ta-da, I want to buy a car. But they're all cars that are relevant to the kind of people who are going to Tesco's. You wouldn't
Mm,
have Ferrari or Bentley or McLaren or whoever turn up because they know it's not the right place. So in that marketplace, it is expensive
mm,
because expensive is a relative concept. To those people, you want more for the car than their house is worth. Of course, it's expensive. But if you go to the right place, that makes the difference. And that was the other understanding that I had on that journey was not all clients are created equal. If
yeah.
you can find, if you can go to where you are valued the most and where they have the physical capacity to pay more for it, that's the best choice to make. That's the best thing to do.
And conversely, exactly that point though, if you parked your Ford Fiesta in Waitrose, or no, or if you trying to sell
Tread
your
carefully.
cheaper, you're trying to sell your cheaper product in a
Yeah,
more expensive market. Again, people are just going to laugh at you. So £500 to somebody in one place is like, that's crazy. This money, I would never pay that for a logo. And then going into a much more corporate market and saying, well, I charge £500, people go say, well, I'm not using her, she's obviously crap.
exactly. And that
That's
is because price is confidence in numbers.
mm,
So I use this example of if you go to a restaurant, every main meal is £15. One of them is £6. Are you going to try it or not? Feels like a gamble, doesn't it? Why is it significantly less than the other ones? It kind of tells you that the chef doesn't have as much faith in it, or it's new, or there's some unknown, there's some risk.
mm,
So generally we avoid it. So a lower price can often imply lower quality. But where you have this issue with undercharging is if we charge less or we lower our prices thinking we're going to be more attractive to people, we can turn them off because we're kind of communicating that it's not really worth that much and it's rubbish.
yeah.
So it's a really tricky thing to navigate for sure.
And the other point about how much you're charging is exactly that, a point about who you're looking to work with.
Mm,
So for me, my price point kind of reflects the fact that I want to work with new startups who are one-man bands, and they potentially think that, well, £500 is affordable to them, but for a lot of people it's a bit of a stretch.
yeah.
They expect me to be good for that price.
Yeah.
Luckily, I do not disappoint.
Yeah, so luckily you are good. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear
Thanks.
that.
But yeah, so I attract my clients because of where I set my price.
Yeah.
People come along and say, "Whoa, Julie, you're way too cheap because you're so good." But they're not my client anyway. I'm not trying to attract big corporates because I don't like working with big companies with 50 million employees where there's like 20 decision makers and everyone
Mm,
has a say, and you end up spending months and months and months. I like working like quick and like one
yeah, me too.
person or two people like making a single decision about this. I like it. I don't like
I had
it.
somebody on a call I was on yesterday where, in passing, I mentioned a domain name that they should potentially consider buying for the thing that they're doing. And it was best part of £3,000. And last night he emailed me and said, "Oh, I just bought it impulsively because I think we need to have that." So, wow, okay, that's interesting. I've never bought a £3,000 domain name just because somebody in passing mentioned it on a phone call. But that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Not only do they have the funds, they've got the willingness and ability to pursue things because they're not looking at, oh, I spent that money. They're looking at, I'm spending it in the pursuit of that. And I think that's the difference.
But yeah, that is the thing. Some people who don't have lots of money is precious. For other people who have loads of money, it's not so precious.
They've got the money and the appreciation. That's the thing. So they've got to appreciate what it's going towards.
Mm,
And then that's the sweet spot you look for. They can physically afford it and they understand the importance of doing it. And that's it. So who are those people for you? What does that look like? And
mm,
if you spend, I mean, if you're watching, listening to this, if you spend 5 minutes doing that for your own business and you identify potential targets in that way. So for me, it's like tech companies, people are creating new technology because they spend loads of money developing it. They need to be able to communicate it. So if you spent £500,000 developing something, I could probably charge you at least £7 to do the messaging for that, right? So it's all relative. But moving in that way then allows me to grow, etc. So yeah, if you think about who your ideal target is, what they can afford and would they appreciate it, that can really change things. Then you realize you've been undercharging all this time.
So if people wanted to work with you, how would they do that? How can they contact you?
Best place is always LinkedIn. So I'm super active on LinkedIn, and I've got loads of videos and loads of posts and articles and stuff there, and also lots of recommendations. I'm quite well known for having quite a large number of LinkedIn recommendations because I really like to lead with my reputation. I like to be able to demonstrate to you that I don't just talk about being good at this. I'm recognized to be good at this. But LinkedIn is the best place because you can get a feel through my content for if you think I know what I'm talking about and if it's applicable to you, and then you can reach out. And generally, there's two things that I do. First one is clear sales messaging, so creating a clear sales message for a business, and that's generally to do one of three things: either to simplify complex offering, it's to differentiate in the marketplace, everybody's doing the same thing, you need to stand out, or it's to justify the price, you've got a high value or an intangible offering. Those are the three things that I work to. And then on the flip side of that, I've got online courses, which is kind of the future of my business and where I'm going, which is called Practical Sales Training. So practicalsalestraining.com is where they're situated. They're £100 a piece plus VAT. And they break down into very, very granular detail how to do things like differentiate, justify the price, find clients, etc. So I think in the differentiation one, for example, so answering the why should I choose you question, there's 52 potential strategies you can use to differentiate from the competition.
Brilliant.
So if you're struggling with why should I choose you, I've got 52 potential ways you can do it. They're probably not all going to work for you, but at least a good 3 to 5 to 10 or more could. And then you've got some practical, actionable stuff you can use, and they're priced at £100 plus VAT because that allows me to reach loads more people at scale and leave a dent in the world, which is what I'm trying to do.
That would also help people who are a little bit confused when they're starting out about where to sort of focus their energies as well. I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's one in there in particular. One of the most popular ones is one around confidence. So, how to feel confident when you're selling, because most people are not confident when they sell. And I can explain to you very much why you feel like that and how to change that. And hopefully, it's in a very practical, easy style. And there's also one about actually messaging basics, so how to get the basics of your clear sales message. There's some really fundamental things you need to develop. And for 100 quid, it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It can really push you a big step forward in terms of what you're doing.
yeah, so everybody needs to head on over and find you on LinkedIn and check out your website or sites and yeah, get benefiting from all this really useful stuff that you have to offer. And yeah, and I'm sure we've all pretty much benefited already. How many hints and tips have we covered? Like, what have
Not
we
as many
not
as
covered?
I usually do on podcasts. Funny enough, usually there's a lot more stuff we cover. But I'll leave you with one tidbit if you want. There's one thing that I usually talk about that most people don't think about, and it can make a bit of a difference, and it's trigger point. So, at what point does your potential client need you? Most of us know our avatar. We know who we're looking for, whether it's a business or a person, whatever. We can describe roughly what that entity looks like, but we don't often know when we need them. And it's that time dynamic that changes everything. So, then you're talking to the right people at the right time.
Mm,
So, what triggers somebody to need you? I always use the really simplified example of, if I have a leaky tap in my house, that's a trigger point to need a plumber. Until that point, I've got pipe work, bars, toilets, sinks, etc. I'm an ideal client for a plumber, but I don't need them. Leaky tap makes me need them. So where's the urgency? Doesn't have to be as urgent as a leaky tap, but where's the urgency? What drives people? When do they think, do you know what? We need a logo for this. What's going through their mind? What does that look like? And once you can identify that, if you can find people experiencing that situation, your outreach and your marketing is so much more effective.
thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stop talking now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Trudy. I really appreciate it. Thank you.